Hello, my name is Helen Gutierrez, and the artwork I chose to show you guys is the Sun Mad Color Serigraph by Esther Hernandez. First, I'll take you back through a bit of history of the 1960s, which I felt had a major influence to Esther's making of the Sun Mad piece. In the 1960s, America was a hotbed of political and social activism, leaving the country in complete turmoil. Spanish-speaking minorities from Mexico, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and other parts of Central and South America have continued to grow in the U.S. through immigration. They have taken on the struggle to gain civil rights and political and economic equality that's marked so much of U.S. history. The American government seemed to be of two minds regarding immigration. In 1942, as millions of young men went off to war, the United States needed cheap labor. The government instituted the Bracero program, which admitted thousands of Mexican nationals to the U.S. under contracts to work in agriculture and other seasonal jobs. Some call the program legalized slavery. Latino and Hispanic resistance to discrimination, violence, and the United States push-pull immigration policy began to take shape as early as the 1920s. Cannery and factory workers in the Southwest formed unions. The League of United Latin American Citizens opened its doors in 1929 with the mission of fighting injustices such as racially segregated West Coast schools and discriminatory hiring practices at railroads. But in 1953, the U.S. government launched Operation Wetback, a program to send people of Mexican descent to Mexico. More than 3.8 million people were deported through the operation, many of them American citizens. In the 1960s, Latinos and Hispanics made their fight for equality even more visible, modeling their actions on the successful African American struggle for civil rights. In 1962, Cesar Chavez founded the National Farm Workers Association. In 1965, his fledgling organization started a boycott on grape growers that exploited their Latino and Hispanic workers. Cesar Chavez was an activist for Latino civil rights in America. Having been a field worker in California until 1952, he saw many discriminatory acts committed against Latinos. As a result, he organized Latino farm workers and encouraged them to demand their rights via the UFW, United Farm Workers. He went on to encourage Hispanic people all over America to stand up for their rights and seize control over their lives. The speech given November 9, 1984 in San Francisco addressed such problems and persuaded Mexican Americans to push for change in the treatment they were given. At this point in the Chicano movement, Latinos had made quite a difference in their treatment already. They have ascended more field workers and moved into true professions and even politics. I'll leave you guys with a famous quote by Cesar Chavez. In truth, hundreds of thousands of farm workers in California and in other states are better off today because of our work. And Hispanics across California and the nation who don't work in agriculture are better off today because of what the farm workers taught people about organization, about pride and strength, and about seizing control over their own lives. Tens of thousands of children and grandchildren of farm workers and the children and grandchildren of poor Hispanics are moving out of the fields and out of the barrios and into the professions and into businesses and into politics, and that movement cannot be reversed. Our union will forever exist as an empowering force amongst Chicanos in the Southwest. That means our power and our influence will grow and not diminish. What led Esther to create her artwork? Well, Esther Hernandez is a known key figure in the Chicano civil rights art movement. The Chicano movement of the 1960s, also called El Movimiento, was a civil rights movement extending the Mexican-American civil rights movement of the 1960s with the stated goal of achieving Mexican-American empowerment. This was the starting foundation of Esther's artwork. She has strong beliefs to make her voice heard for her people. The Sun Mad Color Serigraph was created in 1981 to alert everyone the severe dangers of pesticide used in commercial grape growing in California. This hit back home for Esther. She had moved from Mexico to California. Her grandparents had migrated as well to work on commercial grape farms. Although her plans were attending University of California, Berkeley to study anthropology, she later turned her studies towards an interest with visual arts, later resulting in her joining UFWA strikes against major American grape growers. Once Esther knew about the pesticides used in the grape farm in Dinuba, California, she felt it was her duty to speak up, knowing friends and family were in danger. When she created the screen print, she replaced the well-known figure with a skeleton to show how harmful the consequences of pesticides could be. We also learned that the movement begins in New Mexico with Ruiz Lopez Tijerina. And the land grant movement is picked up by Rodolfo Corti Gonzalez in Denver, who defines meaning of Chicano through his epic poem I Am Joaquin, embraces Cesar Chavez and the farm workers, turns to the struggle of the urban youth, and culminates in growing political awareness and participation with La Raza Unida Party. In 1975, the 1965 Voting Rights Act was extended to the Southwest, guaranteeing Latino and Hispanic Americans the equal opportunity to register and vote. The skull used in her artwork can also connect with the calaveras that are used in Dia de los Muertos. Skulls are usually used as edible or decorative pieces, usually made by hand from sugar or clay, which are used in celebration to the dead. It is a Mexican celebration in which people also prepare special foods and set up an ofrenda in honor of those who have departed. It is believed that the spirit of the dead visits their families on October 31st and leave on November 2nd, the days in which people usually participate in this festivity. You will also notice people decorate the graves of their loved ones for this celebration. Although we had so much going on in the 1960s, pop art was a movement that emerged in the United Kingdom and the United States during the mid to late 1950s. The movement presented a challenge to traditions of fine art by including imagery from popular and mass culture, such as advertising, comic books, and mundane cultural objects. I will be taking an approach to iconography and cultural studies to further explain the details on her piece. Political, social, ecological, and spiritual themes were used in her artwork, which reflects her interest in community and political action. First, I'll explain what they mean. Iconography, as a branch of art history, studies the identification, description, and the interpretation of the contents of images. The subjects depicted the particular compositions and details used to do so, and other elements that are distinct from artistic style. Cultural studies is an innovative interdisciplinary field of research and teaching that investigates the ways in which culture creates and transforms individual experiences, everyday life, social relations, and power. In 1979, while Esther was visiting her mother, she came across a newspaper that showed how DPCP, a pesticide that was being used to protect farms from insects, had contaminated her hometown's water. Here I'll show you guys both portraits side by side. As you look at them, you can see how Esther kept bright colors to purposely catch the viewer's attention. You can see unity in the form of the repetitive green grapes that overflow the basket. The piece is symmetrical, which creates balance in her piece. The repetitive white triangles behind the sun-mat skeleton form the sun and bring back the attention to the skeleton as the main focal point. It uses analytic, expressive, and implied lines. We also see at the bottom of her piece how she states that they are unnaturally grown with insecticides, miticides, herbicides, and fungicides. Another strong approach done by the drive she had for viewers to know the harmful pesticides that were used in vineyards to grow these grapes that eventually became the famous sun-made raisins. The use of the skull that Esther used in her portrait is used to draw upon people's already existing mindset with the image and its association, and alternating it creates a feeling of uncanny that disorients the viewer by making the familiar unfamiliar. The portrait I made myself is a mini collage of pictures I felt represented a message I wanted to get across people as well. Esther's work inspired me because we don't always think about how harmful items or products used every day can affect not only us but the ones around us. So here's a reality check for you all. The black area inside the circle on the picture from the left is of a secondhand smoke damage a child developed on his lung. The picture was taken at Mercy Medical Center by the surgeon who had to remove a portion of this child's lung. Dr. Kumar explains this is from being exposed to secondhand smoke. He was only exposed 4 days a week while in the hands of his caregiver. The bubbled up portion is an air pocket causing his lung to collapse twice, therefore these air pockets and a portion of his lung were removed. Rolling the window down or cracking the door open doesn't minimize the effects. The smoke still gets in your hair, clothes, furniture, their car seats, on your skin, etc. A toxin that affects all humans. Can you imagine what your child's lungs look like if they're around it daily? Here's my challenge question for you guys. Do you believe that with today's social media craze and how a lot of things are later brought into light about being untrue have an effect on how we choose to take the news? Do we start ignoring all news because of this?